tools of the trade and why you are not spending as much money as you think you are. Just get ready until you hear about these crafts, folks. Hey, it's me, Baxter.
And me, Jonathan.
We're here talking about how much money you, this guy, and I have spent, and why it's maybe not that bad. Comparing it.
Relatively. It's all relative.
Don't get me wrong. Okay, so let's get into it. What we're talking about is a lot of people, let's say you have an average price of a guitar, like a professional player's guitar is like almost getting to $2,000 in some cases. It's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000.
Professional.
So we all say that with a very fingers and quotes about ourselves. But no, and then you got another amp. Let's say you spend another $1,000 on that thing, maybe. See, let's say you're
ridiculous, Baxter. Ridiculous. I would never.
Few $100 in pedals. I'm being modest in some ways, and then a little bit overzealous in some ways. So let's say you got close to 4K.
Yep.
Wrapped up in your entire performing gigging apparatus. That's a lot of expendable money.
A modest rig. No, I mean, but when you think about it,
it's like a lot of dough.
It is.
It is a modest rig by some today's standards. It's horrifying. But we were sort of thinking about other craftspeople outside of music.
Yeah.
We'll jump back to that in a minute. Don't worry. But let's say you're a repairman for, I don't know, an auto mechanic.
Right.
Or a boat repair. Like, what is your tool basic cost going to be? I mean, do tools cost money?
No, they're free.
No.
They fall from the sky. No, the little Snap-on man comes around and you give him all your money for like 3 months, paychecks. And
I was sort of shocked when I found out how much these, even with HVAC, our friends that work in that, I didn't know they had to buy their own tools. I thought that was the HVAC company would here's everything you need, have at it. But they would have to buy some of their own stuff and you buy your own uniforms, obviously, but the tooling's you could have $10,000 in tools.
That's right, and you start to, I think in any sort of trade like that, you want to start accumulating your own stuff. Like even when I used to do some like construction and painting, I'd buy tools and
you'd have your own tools.
So yeah, of course, yep.
Yeah, that's sort of that because we never think about it in that way because we often think about because guitars are fun.
Well, I think I think. Even like what we're talking about, people going out and making money, building houses or fixing cars or whatever. What if you just tinker with cars on the weekend? You don't play guitar and you're just a mechanic and you want the fanciest new air compressor or you want, Like if you're, like to build things. I told Elijah the other day that he had sort of DeWalt taste on a Ryobi budget. And I was like, and my dad thought that was hilarious. He didn't really get it, but
when we were at Lowe's, I think the other day, and I saw like the $1,000 like work desk or something. I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. And Sean was like, oh no, that's not even.
Yeah, no.
I was like, oh, that's a lot of money. I was like, no, you have no idea.
Well, like I do things like and I buy Harbor Freight tools for things, right? Which in my brain is like going to buy, I don't know, whatever. A Glary guitar or whatever.
I didn't know Harbor Freight was like the affordable line.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh man, tools are affordable. This isn't that bad. Then I saw the real ones when we were looking in our deep research for this video. I was like, oh Lord.
Well, and you got to figure out, do you want this sort of dispensable thing that you do the project and you kind of trash it and that's because it only kind of lasts that long? Or do you want the whole Derek's favorite saying, buy once, cry once?
No, I like to think he came up with that. I don't think he did, but
he made it up.
I'm going to pretend that
he was
did.
the first one. He coined it
in
1937.
It directly relates to like our pursuit of musical gear. It does. Like when we think about, I want to have something I'm not going to have to replace.
I think it goes back to, right? Like any of these things could be hobbies. If it brings you joy to like have the nicest table saw, awesome. But even though you're probably not making a mat, you're probably making something that you're going to stick in your backyard, whatever,
But the process of making it is probably much greater and more pleasurable.
But if you don't care about that and you want the cheapest Harbor Freight thing and you can still get it done and it's still fun for you, awesome. And I think it's the same with the guitars.
In the musical world.
But
now let's jump ship off of the tools and whatnot, and let's get back into musicians and all. Consider yourself lucky and praised by the gods that you're a guitar player.
Yes.
We all think, oh God, these things are so expensive. I spent $5,000 on my guitar, or God forbid, let's say you spent $10,000 on your guitar. So expensive. A starting professional grade cello, I'm saying low, is like $25K. I have a friend who probably 10 years ago, I remember when she bought her head joint for a flute, just the part you blow into. It was $8,000.
And no one even wants to hear the flute. Imagine. Imagine.
Imagine if you could mute this flute. And then the flute's probably double of that. You know, it was a brass head joint, I remember, and some crazy person machined it or whatever. But it's like, those instruments are even more because the output of what they do is so little, they have to charge a premium. You know, and then the woodworking, obviously, to make a cello or a violin or a, God forbid, viola, is just much more. You know, it's time consuming. Yeah, it's different.
I mean, you get into a whole different stratosphere, like in the classical instruments. You know, I mean,
Don't even think about Stradivarius.
well,
You know,
no,
that's
I mean,
stuff's
you're
the
talking
museum
about
grade.
instruments that are a house, or you know, two houses, or however many.
Like
but-
even like so when you get into like the high end classical, because we think about, you know, the burst or our sort of like gold level top tier, right? Like the burst of 59. That's not even starting with what like the Strads are. And those are like professional businesses have to own them and loan them out to the performers. Like you don't like, unless you get to maybe a Josh Bell level, you can maybe have your own. But I think he didn't have his own for a while.
But I mean, you still think about, right? Like, so if you're Josh Bell, that's your. I mean, that's like being Joe Bonamassa or you know, whoever
Yes.
you want to talk about, right? I mean, what if you're just a weekend violinist? What's the? I mean, you're still paying way more than a guitar, right? For like
You can get cheap ones built overseas now, like violins and everything. You can get like a few $100 violins that are just like,
Okay.
and like sort of laminated and put
they
together.
sound good.
Yeah, all right. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's all right. It's different. The world's. I will say this about the thing of cheap, affordable products. They are better than they ever have been.
Well, sure.
It's not like back in, gosh, the 90s and before, where everything was just sort of, you had to be at a certain level to get any
Right.
quality. And then they have fixed that. The overseas production is outrageously good compared to what it was. But like the next time you are like slapping yourself silly, like, God, I spent so much money on this thing that I just use for my joy. It's like, you're lucky you're a guitar player. You're so lucky. It's like, I thank God every day because like we can buy all these fun toys.
I mean, you know, suddenly a couple $100 pedal seems relatively reasonable.
I mean, jump into like a violin. That's a couple $100 to get your violin rebowed. I really re-haired.
It blew my mind the first time I realized how much the bows cost. The
bows
not
are-
not the violin,
Just
the bow.
I mean, you get $1,500 is like cheap sometimes for a bow. Like you can spend $5,000 on a bow,
which is wild to me.
and then you got to get it re-horsehaired or whatever it is. Like every once in a while, then
Yeah.
you can get fancier rosin. That's not crazy. That's never crazy. It's okay.
I don't know.
It's a weird world. I remember one time I had a friend, he fell asleep when he was practicing cello. He just bought it. I think it was $25K, and this was, gosh,
Oof.
20, 30 years ago. Somebody snuck into his room where he was sleeping and stole it. He had insured, but still, it's
That's insane.
it's like stealing a car, but he's walking out with a wooden thing. It's just we are lucky to be the guitar players. So and remember that this is another little side thing. Remember that next time you have a service person come over, it sort of incenses me sometimes. People get like they came over, they fixed it, and it only took them 10 minutes. I got a bill for $75. Forget about their skill and they're driving over there.
The know-how, right?
And then the labor and all that. Forget about all that. Just remember, there's probably $10,000 worth of tools sitting in that van.
Probably more than that.
I'm just saying
That's a conservative estimate, I'd say.
I'm just trying to
For
be.
most, you know.
And
who knows?
remember that guy probably drove 45 minutes to get to you.
Yeah. It's
You
true.
know, it's just so maybe that $70 or that $150 service call isn't that outrageous.
All true.
I remember we had a plumber come fix something for us a few years ago. Remember the toilets weren't working?
Yep.
And we tried everything, like from like not the time when like somebody flushed the poopery. We figured that out.
We did figure that out. So that was a
We did take the toilet
ordeal
off,
as well, yeah.
get a new ring.
But we did it, by God, yeah.
We did. That was awesome. But this one we just couldn't figure out. But it was like a $600 to $700 bill, but it was like I gladly paid it because like it was something we could not do.
We had no idea. Yeah.
It was something. The whole lines was we tried everything. Nothing was working. Man, that's all right. So at the end of the day, thank God I get to play guitar. Thank God you're a great banjo player.
Thank goodness.
Banjos. Heard enough of those for the year. No offense.
God's instrument.
Just got back from a Bluegrass
banjo.
Festival. Still recovering. It's PTSD, 100%. Well, I mean, do you think when God was in heaven making the instruments and he came up with banjo and the bagpipes.
Mm.
Do you think it was God that made those? I'm trying to play one of them. Okay, that's all I got. If you guys have any more thoughts and things you can add to this, please do. This is some funny stuff. Great floor plan for some good runoffs on. Just relations and connections. Oh my God, I've spent like $20,000 on gear, and it brings me the most joy for my 1 gig a month, or my gig in my living room by myself. That's where I do all my gigs now, alone.
Hey, whatever makes you happy.
I think that's what it is. That's the answer. Click like, subscribe.
Hit the bell.
Have fun. Play your gear. Don't worry about how much money you spend. Just spend more. Have a good time doing it. It's like, thank God we get to do this. Peace be with you. See you guys later.
Goodbye.